What's up, Internet? We're back with another art gear review. Today I'm going to talk about some oil painting mediums, a couple of the ones that I have. I'll go through and explain a little bit about all of them, from the more traditional ones with linseed oil to something a little bit more experimental. I'll tell you the differences between them all, and I'll talk to you about the ones that are my favorite. Alright, so let's start off with the most basic of the basic. We're going to talk about refined linseed oil. When you first take your first oil painting class, your first teachers, your friends are going to tell you to use linseed oil. It's the most traditional, and the reason for that is because it's already mixed into your paints. They take the pigment, they mix it with linseed oil, and they give you this nice buttery texture. So adding more linseed oil is just going to make it more into a liquid, make it more transparent. If we read the back, it says it increases flow, increases gloss, and increases transparency. One drawback, at least I think it's a drawback, is that it slows down your drying times considerably. So you're going to be waiting days in between your paints being fully dry, depending on the type of paint. I'll pour some out here for you guys just so you can see the consistency of it. It's basically a liquid. I mean, it's maybe a little bit thicker, but it's very liquidy. So if I mix it in, I'm gonna get, depending on how much I mix in, I'll get basically a liquid. It completely changes the consistency of the paint, makes it into a completely different paint. So let me zoom you guys in here. This is gonna start dripping on me. I can spread it around. And if I put this up on a canvas, I'll put some of the paint, it's going to start dripping down immediately. It's not going to hold its shape very well, but it's also going to get rid of brush strokes. If you're into very smooth painting, this is probably what you're going to be looking for, something smooth like this to get yourself nice skin tones or nice smooth textures. So that's the linseed oil. Alright, so what if you're watching that and you're like, I don't mind the slow drying times, but I'm not a big fan of that consistency. I don't like it super watery. I don't want my stuff to drip, and I'm not really into very smooth brushwork. Well, that's where our BFF stand oil comes in. So if we look at this, look at the consistency. This kind's made by Gamblin. This is more of like a honey texture, almost like molasses. It's nice and thick. So I'll pour some out so you guys can see the consistency of this. Pours out real slowly, globs on nicely. So this stuff's going to give us a slow drying time also, but it's going to give us a completely different texture. Let's zoom us in here so we can see a little bit better. This texture is going to stick to your palette knife. You see it glob up there. And the cool thing about this is that it'll hold your brush strokes on a canvas, but eventually it will drip if you leave it overnight. When you come back the next morning, it might have some drips that weren't there before you left. But this texture is very cool. So it's kind of thick, but also increases the flow of your paint, so they last a little bit longer, they go a little bit further. So I'll spread this out. This is almost like spreading a frosting on top of a cake or something. It's nice and thick, globs on nicely, and it doesn't lose its color. So that texture is very nice. It's a little bit different than linseed oil. The way stand oil is made is actually just taking linseed oil and boiling it down so it gets nice and thick like this. So it's made out of the same stuff. That's why it still slows down the drying time, but it's thickened up. It's just like reducing a sauce over the stove makes it nice and thick. So that's the consistency of stand oil. We got some quicker drying ones coming up next. So what if you're saying, I don't care about the consistency, it can be liquid, it can be thick, as long as it dries fast. I got a crit in 2 days, my paintings need to dry, I need to get everything done, I've been putting it off to the last second, I got deadlines to meet, I'm a busy person, I got stuff to do, I can't be waiting 3 days for stuff to dry. That's where our friend Liquin comes in. So if I'm going to pour this out for you guys, this one's kind of old, so it's kind of drying up here, but this one is pretty liquidy. It's a little bit thicker than regular linseed oil, but not quite as thick as stand oil. But the cool thing about Liquin, the reason I like it so much, is that it'll dry very quickly. If I read the label, I think it says it'll dry probably in about 24 hours, depending on the paint. So an earth color like this is some umber, it'll definitely dry. If I paint today, paint tonight, it'll dry by the next morning. If I'm using a cadmium or a color that dries slower anyways, it probably might take 24 hours or so, but it dries pretty fast. It'll dry to the touch. It won't take days and days for it to dry, just like the linseed oil or the stand oil. So this is going to dry quickly. It's going to allow you to make lots of layers without wasting a lot of time. And you also get a nice little bit of consistency, so it's thick but not too thick, somewhere in the middle. This is also a good starting off medium for beginners because it allows you to dry up or have your paintings dry and allow you to paint right over them without waiting too long in between and losing your focus. So this is nice. This is Winsor Newton's brand of Liquin, but Gamblin also makes one called Gal Kit, I believe. So there's that. Alright, now these last two are for when you're feeling really bold. You want every single brush stroke to have a voice. You want your painting and your brush stroke to stand out that far from the canvas, and you want to have a bold painting. You want stuff to stand out. First one I have for the cold wax medium is this Liquin Impasto. So this is Liquin, just like the Liquin I showed you before. It dries fast. Only thing is it comes out of a tube now. So you got nice thick Liquin. It's got the same consistency as a nice buttery oil paint. So I'll mess with that a little bit for you guys. And it dries fast. It's gonna leave your painting shiny, but it's also gonna let you make some thick, bold strokes. So I'll throw that over here with the Liquin. The next one's probably the most experimental one I have. I don't use it too much, but it is nice to throw in every now and then when you want your colors to be bold and really stand out. So it's called Cold Wax Medium. This is a Gamblin brand. So really it's just a bunch of wax in there. So you see me, I kind of got a stick paddle knife in there to pull it out. And it's just wax basically. So this is nice to mix into your oil paints and not lose too much of your color. This does give like a weird dull sheen to the paint, so it's not as shiny as when you add linseed oil. It's kind of a weird dull type consistency, but it's nice and thick. It's great for making, and this is definitely like cake frosting now. So mixing it up here to make sure I get everything covered. But this, just one stroke of this will make your brush strokes stand out. The cool thing about this is that because it's wax, it is flexible enough that if you paint on a canvas and your canvas kind of wobbles, it won't crack and it won't break. At least I haven't had that happen to me yet. I don't use this too much. None of my paintings are very thick, but this is nice when you do want nice thick brush strokes. So that's Cold Wax Medium and Liquin Impasto. Now that I went through all the 5 different mediums that I have, I went through the linseed oil, through the stand oil, the Liquin Impasto, and the Cold Wax Medium. I've showed you how they're all different, what they all do. My favorite one, the one that I use the most, definitely has to be stand oil. I'm willing to put up with the slow drying times because I love this consistency. It's like honey. So this consistency lets your brush strokes stand out, but will eventually kind of drip down, and I kind of dig that about it. So I like that consistency so much that I'm willing to put up with the slow drying times for it. And I found actually just from personal experience that the drying times on this aren't as slow as the linseed oil. That's one thing that really put me off. They dry so slow, and this texture doesn't really give me anything extra. It doesn't add anything to the paintings. If you want quick drying stuff, Liquin's your best bet. Liquin Impasto definitely helps out, and this Cold Wax Medium is nice for experimenting. But my favorite has to be the stand oil. Let me know what you guys use, what you think is your favorite. And I know I left a lot off this list. These are the only ones that I've been using. So if you have any recommendations, definitely let me know in the comments.